Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. Oh, it was a large, lovely garden with soft green grass. And here and there over the grass stood beautiful flowers, like stars. And there were 12 peach trees that in the springtime broke out into delicate blossoms of pink and pearl, and in the autumn bore rich fruit. The birds sat in the trees and sang so sweetly that the children used to stop their games in order to listen to them. "How happy we are here," they said to each other. Then, one day, the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend, the Cornish ogre, and had stayed with him for 7 years. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in his garden. "What are you doing here?" he said in a very gruff voice, and the children all ran away. "My own garden is my own garden," said the giant. "Anyone can understand that. And I shall allow nobody to play in it but myself." And he built a high wall all round it. He was a very selfish giant. Well, the children had now nowhere to play. They used to wander round this high wall when their lessons were over and talk about the beautiful garden inside. How happy we were there. Then the spring came. All over the country there were little blossoms and little birds, but in the garden of the selfish giant it was still winter. "I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming," said the giant as he sat at his window and looked out at his cold white garden. "I hope there will be a change in the weather." But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. "He is too selfish," she said. So it was always winter there. Well, one morning the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought, "It must be the king's musicians passing by." Well, it was really only a little linnet singing outside his window. But it was so long since he had heard a bird sing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. And a delicious perfume came to him through the open casement. "I believe the spring has come at last," said the giant, and he jumped out of bed and he looked out. And what did he see? Well, he saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept back into the garden, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child. And the trees were so happy to have the children back again that they had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. Oh, it was a wonderful sight. Only in one corner, it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. Well, he was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree, and he was wandering all round it, crying bitterly. The poor tree was still covered with frost and snow. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree, and it bent its branches down as low as it could. But the boy was too tiny. Well, the giant's heart melted. "How selfish I've been," he said. "Now I understand why the spring would not come here." He was really very sorry for what he had done. So he crept downstairs and he opened the front door quite softly and he went out into the garden. But when the children saw him, they became so frightened that they all ran away and the garden became winter again. Only the little boy did not run, for his eyes were so filled with tears that he did not see the giant coming. So the giant stole up behind him, and he took him gently in his hand, and he placed him up into the tree. And the tree broke at once into blossom, and the birds came and sang in it, and the little boy stretched out his 2 arms and flung them round the giant's neck and kissed him. And when the children saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, they came running back to the garden, and with them came the spring. Well, all day long the children played in the giant's garden, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. "Where is your little companion?" said the giant. "The boy I put into the tree." "We do not know," said the children. "He has gone away." "You must tell him to be sure and come tomorrow." But the children said they did not know where he lived, and that they had never seen him before. And the giant felt very sad. Well, every afternoon when school was over, the children would go and play with the giant. But the little boy whom the giant loved was never seen again. Years went over, and the giant grew very old and feeble. One winter morning he was looking out of his window as he was dressing when he saw a most extraordinary sight. In the farthest corner of the garden was the tree, quite covered with lovely white blossoms. But its branches were golden, and silver fruit hung down from them. And underneath the tree stood the little boy. Well, downstairs ran the giant in great joy and out into the garden, and he hastened across the grass and came near to the child. But when he grew quite close, his face grew red with anger. "Who hath dared to wound thee?" said the giant. For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on the little feet. "Who hath dared to wound thee? Tell me, that I may take my great sword and slay him." "Nay," answered the child, "these are the wounds of love." "Who art thou?" said the giant. And a great awe fell on him, and he knelt before the little child. And the child smiled on the giant and said, "You let me play once in your garden. Today you shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise." And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms